Don and Phil are performing at the Royal Albert Hall later this week. And with a little retuning of the old vocal chords, it'll be Cathy's Clown and Wake Up Little Susie, just like it used to be.
I want you to tell me why, walk out on me.
From the late 50s to the early 60s, the Everly Brothers dominated the pop world. The mixture of rock and plaintive ballads, both with their roots in American country music, placed them firmly in the mainstream of Western pop. Their first big hit, Bye Bye Love, in 1957, was the beginning of a long career. Within 3 years, they'd sold 15 million singles. Their concerts this week, the start of a possible comeback, are being filmed by Arena to be shown on BBC television at Christmas. But it's 10 years since the Everlys played together. Did they find it difficult to recapture their old sound?
It was really surprising when we hit the first couple of notes. We didn't really know, ourselves. And just to hear the first couple, and then I knew things.
We didn't make no
swell.
big deal about it. We just tuned up and walked up in front of the microphone and started.
It was a little, just like jumping in water. You have to jump in. We had to find out.
The Everly Brothers are performing at the Royal Albert Hall this Thursday and Friday. With hits like Cathy's Clown and Wake Up Little Susie, Don and Phil provided the music of the late 50s and early 60s. Joe Paley reports.
I want you to tell me why, walk out on me.
From the late 50s to the early 60s, the Everly Brothers dominated the pop world. The mixture of rock and plaintive ballads, both with their roots in American country music, placed them firmly in the mainstream of Western pop. Their first big hit, Bye Bye Love, in 1957, was the beginning of a long career. Within 3 years, they'd sold 15 million singles. Their concerts this week, the start of a possible comeback, are being filmed by Arena to be shown on BBC television at Christmas. But it's 10 years since the Everlys played together. Did they find it difficult to recapture their old sound?
It was really surprising when we hit the first couple of notes. We didn't really know, ourselves. And just to hear the first couple, and then I knew things.
We didn't make no
swell.
big deal about it. We just tuned up and walked up in front of the microphone and started.
It was a little, just like jumping in water. You have to jump in. We had to find out.
Don and Phil Everly, born to a country music family from Kentucky, began playing together in 1945. In the 50s and 60s, they produced 26 singles that made the British charts and became the first pop stars in history to sign a $1 million record contract. But 10 years ago, the brothers split up, barely able to speak to each other. So the reunion they announced today was a personal as well as a professional reconciliation. I asked them why they decided to make a comeback.
I think it's people have every day since we broke up. Why don't you get back together? And I say, no, don't. Finally, it's just time. The time when you look at everything that's happening in the music and you begin to want to do it. You begin to want to see yourself on stage. You begin to want to.
Yeah, it really
why
happened
don't do
like
it?
Whose idea was it?
I don't know.
Mutual.
It sort of floated around. It's
friends.
funny. We picked the Albert Hall separately.
Yeah, together.
For the same reason, which is that we played
finally
there
did
with
say,
Dad.
where do we play? Let's play at the Albert Hall.
And it was special and magic, and so
was
it wound up
time.
being it was right time.
What remains to be seen is whether there's still a market for the music of the Everly Brothers.
Don and Phil Everly split up 10 years ago after topping the pops in the 50s and the 60s, and they're singing at the Royal Albert Hall later this week.
Don and Phil Everly, born to a country music family from Kentucky, began playing together in 1945. In the 50s and 60s, they produced 26 singles that made the British charts and became the first pop stars in history to sign a $1 million record contract. But 10 years ago, the brothers split up, barely able to speak to each other. So the reunion they announced today was a personal as well as a professional reconciliation. I asked them why they decided to make a comeback.
I think it's people have every day since we broke up. Why don't you get back together? And I say, no, don't. finally it's just time. The time when you look at everything that's happening in the music and you begin to want to do it. You begin to want to see yourself on stage. You begin to want to...
Yeah, it really
why don't
happened
do
like
it?
Whose idea was it?
I don't know.
Mutual.
It sort of floated around. It's funny, we picked the Albert Hall separately.
Yeah, together.
For the same reason, which is that we played
finally
there
did
with
say,
Dad.
where do we play? Let's go lay at the Albert Hall.
And it was special and magic, and so it wound up being just, it was right time.
What remains to be seen is whether there's still a market for the music of the Everly Brothers.
We're staring in London today at the Everly Brothers prepared for their comeback concert. It's 10 years since they last played together and more than 20 since their heyday, but they're still expected to pack them in at concerts this week.
Bye-bye, love. Bye-bye, happiness.
This was how it began for the Everly Brothers in 1957. Bye Bye Love was followed by a string of 36 hits, and their distinctive harmonies led them to be the first pop stars in history to sign a $1 million record contract. Their songs about the heartbreak of teenage love evoked a strong response in a young audience that had just discovered rock and roll. But by 1973, the strains proved too much. The brothers split up, barely able to speak to each other, and vowing never to sing together again. So their reunion is a personal as well as a professional reconciliation. Money, they say, is not the motive, so why the comeback?
I think it's people every day since we broke up. Why don't you get back together? And I say, no, don't. Finally, it's just time. The time when you look at everything that's happening in the music and you begin to want to do it. You begin to want to see yourself on stage.
Hit records in the 50s and 60s. So we sent Andrew Harvey to indulge in a little nostalgia when the two of them got together for rehearsals yesterday in London.
With 15 million singles sold in their first 3 years, Don and Phil Everly became a legend and the first singers ever to win a $1 million recording contract. But in the mid-60s, it all turned sour. The brothers, who first sang with their father and mother on the radio before they were 10 years old, split up and never spoke to each other again for years. Now they're back together in London, and with a quick glance to check they were in the right seat, they held a press conference yesterday to announce details of their 2 concerts at the Royal Albert Hall later this week. But with their first hit single recorded 26 years ago, who are their fans today?
Well, the average age of the fan club is 21, so figure that out. I don't understand it. Well, you see a lot of groups that have toured, their fans now range from their 20s to their 40s.
You know, I've found that whenever I'm in, the better the class of restaurant, you know, the more chances I'll be recognized. And I think a lot of our old fans have done quite well.
But you haven't, in fact, communicated together for several years, have you?
People don't realize that when we did split up, we'd been working 25 or 30 years already. You know, I haven't even counted them up, but we had been in show business since we were very young. Phil and I think I was 7 when we really say we started working at it, and Phil was 5 and a half.
And I was semi-employed at that time.
Yes, and so we
Donald
we
was
split
working
up.
steady.
You were telling jokes, weren't you?
Yes, he started telling
Bad ones, too.
He still does it, too. But we needed some time to really, I think, basically to find out who we were as individuals, and I think it's wonderful. I mean, it's crazy and everything, but it's still an experience, because it's not really, I don't think it's normal to spend your life completely that close, actually. And we were close. I mean, we were close. We survived 4 marriages, and I mean, we needed the time alone.
Was it very bitter, though, the split up?
Well, there's going to be problems, but that happens constantly in families. Even the royal family, I think, has had problems over the years.
We fought before we made records, too. You know, it wasn't like that had anything to do with it.
To answer that is the best thing is, people say about my family, I turn and say, well, what's your family like? What about your brothers? What about your sisters? And everybody has problems in their family.
Why have you decided to get together again, though, after all these years?
I think it just happened. I can't really say it. We had a lot of people that wanted to see it happen. I think probably, all in all, there was one thing. I didn't spend one day without somebody saying, why don't you get back together?
Yes, you must have been under enormous pressure.
Yes, there was that every day. everywhere you would go. And, you know, somebody said, would you, you know, I don't want to do it. You know, it works backwards. But then sooner or later, time changes. And I don't know. It's an adventure. That's the major thing. Right now, it's an adventure again, which is wonderful.
Think about the love that burns within my heart for you. The good times we had before you went away. Oh, me. Walk right back to me this minute. Bring your love to me, don't send it. I'm so lonesome every day.
I don't hardly know what to say. I've thought and thought and thought. What's the first words I should say? And I just couldn't come up with anything other than, it's good to be back. Don't want your love anymore. Don't want your kisses, that's for sure. I die each time I hear this sound.
That's all from us tonight. A special next week on Friday night, presenting that evening of nostalgia at the Royal Albert Hall in September, when the Everly Brothers appeared on stage together for the first time in 10 years. The popular music event of the year, the Everly Brothers Reunion Concert, on Friday week at 9:15.
For pop fans, the Everly Brothers Reunion Concert.
I'll never let you see. Oh, if my broken heart is hurting me. Oh,
From London's Royal Albert Hall, all the excitement of their classic hits recreated.
right back to me this minute. Bring your love to me, don't send it. I'm so lonesome every day.
The Everly Brothers reunited on Friday at 9:15. Part of the Christmas entertainment on BBC Two.
Now, 38 minutes after the hour.
I don't know about you, but I grew up listening to the Everly Brothers. Well, they got back together last night after a 10-year split. They sang in London's Royal Albert Hall and took the audience through a night of nostalgia, including such hits as Wake Up Little Susie.
Wake up, little Susie, wake up. We've both been sound asleep. Wake up, little Susie, and weep. The movie's over, it's 4 o'clock, and we're in trouble deep. Wake up, little Susie.
A few more pounds, but the voices are the same, aren't
Exactly
they?
the same. Guess strapping on the old feed bag hasn't hurt him too much.
Wake up, little Susie, wake up, here he comes.
London, 23 september 1983. De reunion concert van de legendarische Everly Brothers.
All I have to do is dream.
The Everly Brothers Reunion Concert. Op de dubbel LP en TSA Turbo cassette.
Dream, 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 dream. Dream, dream, dream when I want you in my arms when I want.
Oh, I remember that tune. It's right now 7:49. The harmonies of the Everly Brothers were part of the new wave of popular music back in the 1950s, and their unique sound has been one of the most lasting and most influential in rock music. The Beatles in their early days dubbed themselves the English Everly Brothers. Bob Dylan has reportedly said, quote, "We owe these guys everything. They started it all." And recently another dynamic singing duo, Simon and Garfunkel, told us that the way they learned to sing was by listening to the Everly Brothers.
We're big Everly Brothers fans. We always do an Everly Brothers song or two.
Well, others have tried to duplicate the special sound, the harmonies of the Everlys, but there is only one original.
Wake up, little Susie. Well, what are we gonna tell your mama? What are we gonna tell your papa? What are we gonna tell our friends? Where do they say? Ooh la la, wake up, little Susie. Wake up, little Susie. Wake up, little Susie.
night in London, Don and Phil Everly performed together for the first time in 10 years. And judging from the reaction they got, those were 10 long years for their fans. Don and Phil Everly are with us this morning from London. And good morning, guys. Phil, what was it like last night back on stage after all this time?
It was as exciting as it could possibly get. Probably the most unique experience I've had in a long, long time, probably ever will in my entire life. It was a special, special night. Lived up to what we thought it would be like here in London, and I don't know, it's beyond words, it really is. Last night I described it like being in the Twilight Zone. I thought I was in some wild place.
Don, how have you changed in these last 10 years, the two of you singing together? How has your style changed?
I don't think we really have that much. I think that we've got more mature, you know, of course. And I don't know, I think that, well, 10 years is a long time. But I felt really comfortable with it all. I felt it was wonderful, actually. There were some really wonderful moments on stage last night. There were sometimes I thought we could have done better, but for the most part, it was a unique experience. I must admit that. It's a once-in-a-lifetime thing.
Well, of course, not only was this a professional reunion, but I mean, this was more than that. This was a personal reunion for you two brothers. Phil, there really hasn't been a lot of contact between the two of you since Don walked off the stage, I believe it was at Knott's Berry Farm. How is the personal reunion going for you?
Well, basically, that's really what it was. We decided to do this because of that. We wanted, you know, just to settle the family things, and we ended on stage, and we thought we'd start up on stage again, although we had to be brothers first to make this work.
Phil and I have been together musically since really, I was 7 years old and Phil was 5, and we were a family act with Mom and Dad, and music is just an extension of what we are, and it's always been that way. And we're now, I think, we really got the brothers in front of the personal relationship in front of the act. I think the act took over the personal relationship.
Well,
I think that was the problem.
Yeah, well, maybe because your mom, Ike, and Margaret, they were well-known country singers. You guys started so young with them, and you really were nose to nose all those years together until about 10 years ago. As you
we
look,
sang on one microphone for 25 years.
Well, when you look back now, though, on these last 10 years, do you have any regrets, time lost of not being together?
Well, there is part of that, but there was, Phil and I probably spent more time together as far as brothers go, and maybe the Mills brothers could top us, but very few people could say they've spent more time with their brother than me.
You know, what really is unique about that time, the 10 years, it gave us a unique time to do all of the things that we never had a chance to do, like grow tomatoes, have a dog, you know, and be at home.
We appreciate each other as an individual now. I think that we looked at each other and we were just the Everly brothers, to ourselves, and now it's Don and Phil, and there's a better thing happening now.
You had to grow individually, apart from each other.
Oh, of course.
Yeah. Well, what were you doing?
Important.
What were you two doing in the last 10 years?
A little of everything. I was in England a lot.
Yeah, I basically stayed home. I guess you either call me lazy or semi-retired. I just sort of took life easy, you know. And I have children, and I just watched them grow up and did all the good things, things that people take for granted, that from all the years on the road that we had been traveling so much that we had kind of missed, you know.
Yeah, there was, go ahead.
You both have children. Don, I think you have 4 children, what, 3 daughters and a son. And Phil, you have 2 sons, right? What are they, 9 and 17?
Yeah, 9 and 17. It was a long time between activity.
do you have any desire for them to sing? Do they show any desire to be new Everly brothers?
Well, I don't think new Everly brothers I'd ever push that on anybody. There's the 2 of us already, you know.
There's the second generation. Our father was really the original Everly brothers. Was our father, Chuck and Leonard, his 2 brothers. There was 3 of them. So we're actually second generation ourselves.
But my oldest boy is playing, and plays pretty good, plays better than I do.
Plays guitar, yeah. Well, are we going to be seeing more of you two together? Are the Everly brothers, was last night the start of something good?
I think so.
We thought we'd just do this and then sit down and take vacation. We're going to go to Paris and have dinner and after the concerts and kind of goof around, and then I'm going back to the States, and then we're going to decide what we're going to do.
Well, have a good time, and we'll all be waiting to see if we all get a chance to see you. Thanks a lot.
Well, great. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Our pleasure.
Don Everly was 8 years old and Phil Everly was 6 when they first sang together as the Everly Brothers. For a while they split. Well, now they're reuniting in a London concert. Here's NBC correspondent Don Porter live from London. Good morning, Don.
Good morning, Bryant. Here in the land of the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, and the Police, the Everly Brothers still have plenty of fans who remember them very well from 25 years ago. It was in the late 1950s when Don and Phil Everly started making their hit records. Hits like Bye Bye Love and Kathy's Clown, records that climbed to the top of both the rock and the country and western charts. Last night at London's Royal Albert Hall, a sellout crowd of 6,000 witnessed the reunion of the Everly Brothers. Don and Phil on stage performing together for the first time in 10 years.
Wake up, little Susie, wake up. We've both been sound asleep. Wake up, little Susie, and weep. The movie's over, it's 4 o'clock and we're in trouble deep. Wake up, little Susie.
After the concert, well-wishers gathered to welcome the Everlys back. Don is 46 now, Phil 44. Both men are a little grayer, perhaps a little less lean than in the old days, but both appear to be happy the time for a comeback may be at hand. Back live now with Don and Phil Everly. Welcome. What happened 10 years ago when you split up? It was kind of evident to everyone there that you weren't exactly getting along then. Is that phase over in your lives?
Yeah, well, I think our career took over our personal lives, and that's what I've come to the conclusion of, because after being able to spend time really alone, which was the first time in our lives that we had ever lived as individuals, the Everly Brothers had just sort of taken over, and the career had, and plus the people around that were running the business and everything, and we just hadn't had a chance to be individuals. And now that we've had that chance, it's why not sing again together, you know? It's that sort of thing.
Phil, let me ask you, why come all the way to London to stage your reunion concerts?
When we decided that we were going to do something, we had to pick a place, and we talked about the various places in the world that we'd want to play. And the Royal Albert Hall is a special musical memory for us. We played here with our father one time, and it was a chance for us to see him on stage, and the people here gave him a standing ovation. It's just one of the fondest memories we've ever had, and it just has always been a good place in my heart, and I'm glad we chose here because it was just delightful last night. It was fun.
It looked as though you were having a good time. What did it feel like, and are you the same after all this time? Is your music the same?
Well, I just heard that little bit from last night, just now, for the first time, and it sounded pretty good to me. I was, you think, was it going to... I enjoyed it. Last night I had some really wonderful moments on stage, I mean, musically, and some you always think you can do some better, you know, but I think we've matured, but I think there's nothing wrong with maturity.
Right.
You know, I think we remained kids quite a long time, too.
What is there about your music that has made it last so long and remain so popular?
I don't know, that's almost beyond my comprehension. You know, I'm very delighted for it. I think it's basically that the music trends moved more towards what we were doing from the initial part, and we're more in tune with what everybody's coming back to, and I think that's really the reason. That we also had great songs, and we've also been very lucky.
So does this mean that we're going to hear and see more of the Everly Brothers in the immediate future?
I think so, yeah.
We take it a day at a time, but it's been too much fun not to. It really has.
When your music was big, I mean, it's still entrenched in Western pop music, but when it was big, people called it rockabilly. What does that mean?
Well, rockabilly, when it was the term first was brought around in the 50s, I really wasn't too fond of it because it was being called a hillbilly in a way. And we were from Kentucky, and we didn't really go for that. But now the term means something else. It's kind of more of a warm, affectionate term. And like we met the Stray Cats last night for the first time. They were wonderful musicians, and I really like their music. And there's a rockabilly thing. I like that music. And
once again, then, do you think the Everly Brothers are back together to stay?
Well, we're going to be brothers for the rest of our lives.
Yeah.
I guarantee that.
Yeah, the brothers come before the act now.
Yes, and that's
we've got
the
that
main
in proper
thing that we did.
perspective.
That's really what we set out to do, and that's what we succeeded in doing.
Well, good luck, and thank you both very much, Don and Phil Everly, for coming to be with us today. And now back to Bryant, New York.
All right, Don Porter, thank you. Didn't know we were going to have an edition of Family Ties today, too. Dr. Art Ulene is next in a moment.
We were very young, and you can hear it in us. We were good at what we do now, you know, but we were young. And now I think there's a lot more maturity in our voice, and I think it's better.
You can sing the blues at 20 and be blue. You can be sad at 20. But when you sing the blues at 40, you've got 40 years of blues and 40 years of sad, and it's sadder. But then at 60, it'll be some other way.
There can't be nobody else recording. We're all here.
Music has always held up. There are songs, all I have to do is dream and let it be me, which will probably exist, long after I'm dead.
We're going, right, and then there's just a yeah, blam, we're done.
I thought that you could go anywhere with rock and roll, and it's been proven that you can take whatever you want to call it rock and roll, but whatever that movement was in the music, from that step from big bands, orchestrated music, to the youth movement in the late 50s, that music then goes on. They still call it rock and roll.
And all your charms, whenever I want you, all I have to do is dream, 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 dream of you. Send me, honest you do, honest you do, honest you do. Honest you do, honest you do, honest you do. Never felt like this until I kissed you. How did I exist until I kissed you? Like I could die. Now wake up, little Susie, wake up. Wake up, little Susie, wake up. We've both been sound asleep. Wake up, little Susie, and we weep. The movie's over, it's 4 o'clock and we're in trouble deep. Wake up, little Susie, wake up, little Susie. I'll never hurt you, I'll never lie, I'll never be untrue, I'll never give you reason to cry, I'd be unhappy if you were blue. that baby of mine. So I went to the chaplain, and he authorized me to send for my ebony eyes. My ebony eyes was coming to me from out of the skies on flight 1203. In an hour or two, I would whisper I do to my beautiful ebony eyes. Love hurts, love scars, love wounds and mars. Heavy heart, not tough or strong enough to take a lot of pain, take a lot of pain. Love is like a cloud, holds a lot of rain. Love hurts, love hurts. Don't want your love anymore. Don't want your kisses, that's for sure. I die each time I hear this sound. Here he comes, that's Kathy's clown. So never leave me lonely. Say that you love me only, and that you'll always let it be me. Say that you'll always let it be me. The blues stay away from me. Blues, why don't you let me be? Don't know why you keep on haunting me. Life is full of misery. Tears so many I can't see. Bringing back the love that used to be. why don't you let me be? Don't know why you keep on haunting me, Albert. Stay away from me. Blues, why don't you let me be? Don't know why you keep on haunting